13.5 is World War II and all that goes with it, and this is a long video. I put all of World War II in one section, which is insane and one of the stupidest things I've ever done in my life, but hey, here we go. We're getting close to the end, so find what you need here. Of course, we've gone through this stuff in class, most of it. It is a gross disservice to all that World War II is, but again, it's basically the highlights as we zoom through. So, trouble. Something came to my mind, but I cannot pull it out of said mind. So, trouble is brewing. Let me get my pen going here. Red. 1931 is when trouble starts. You really don't have any trouble before then, not really. But you have trouble starting in 1931. The question is, how can the League of Nations deal with aggressive countries? Remember, the League of Nations created post-World War I to deal with threats to peace around Europe. So the question is, what is it going to do to stop these aggressive countries? We're talking Japan invading Manchuria, which is a region of China, in the year 1931. 4 years later, Italy invades Ethiopia, seeking revenge for imperialistic defeats. Germany, the military, reoccupies the Rhineland in 1936, which goes counter to what the Treaty of Versailles said. And then in 1938, Hitler annexes Austria, an event called the Anschluss, and he desires Czechoslovakia. So the question is, what does the League of Nations do, and why don't they move to stop these aggressive moves by these countries? If their goal is to keep the peace, why are they allowing these three countries to form and commit aggressive actions toward weaker areas? So that is kind of the question going forward. And the understanding, just before we start, and this is going to frame a lot of this first part of the section, is France and Britain in particular do not want another war. They want to prevent that, and that will make them a little bit hesitant to try and come in and stop what happens. Speaking of the Rhineland, so this is an area of Germany called the Rhineland. The Rhine River flows its way through. The water is not red, you should know that. But in any case, that area had been told by the Treaty of Versailles, they told the Germans, you cannot go into, that's the worst arrow I've ever driven. I'm not driving arrows, just erase all that. Basically, the Germans were told, you cannot have a military presence, these arrows are terrible, in this area of Germany. Okay, you can't have it there, because the thought is that could be an area that if the Germans have military, they could be in France very quickly. So they have to stay out of that area so that it provides security on the French border. Now, Hitler decides in 1936, I'm going to move the military in there again. That arrow is much better. I'm going to re-establish a military presence there. And France and Great Britain and the rest of the League of Nations does nothing to actively dissuade Hitler from doing these aggressive moves. And it's something that he later said that if he had been stood up to there, he would have lost. So the French and British had stood up to him as the military, which he's not supposed to be building either way. If they'd stood up to him here, then who knows what could have happened, because Hitler believed he did not have the military strength to stop what was happening. So you've got the Rhineland. You also have some aggressive moves in Spain, where in 1936 a pro-fascist army triggers a civil war led by a man named Francisco Franco. Hitler and Mussolini are going to directly aid Franco in his attempts to take over the country. There's Hitler obviously on the left and Franco giving the high five here on the right. They help in order to test out their own military. So it's basically a scrimmage before potentially a bigger conflict later on. And some of the results of this is that, first of all, the fascists are going to take over Spain and basically control it from there on out. But you also have a friendship created between Rome and Berlin. So Italy and Germany working together in this. Now the fascists are basically working together and have a little alliance going. And it establishes another fascist country in Europe. But even more so, again, guess who does not come to the party? The League of Nations. They were not a part in trying to resolve this conflict. So we've got a situation where Hitler is aggressively moving toward taking other areas and also influencing those areas. And Neville Chamberlain, who is the British Prime Minister, a little UK up here, in the United Kingdom, the British Prime Minister, he says enough's enough because he doesn't want Hitler. You know, Hitler's taking Austria. He's helping with the Spanish Civil War. He restores the Rhineland. So Chamberlain, before Hitler can take, say, Czechoslovakia, Chamberlain calls a peace conference. I can't talk. A peace conference at Munich, which is in Germany. And when going there, Chamberlain is going to practice appeasement. He is going to give Hitler what he wants in order to prevent a future conflict. That's what appeasement is. So at the conference, Hitler is going to receive an area called the Sudetenland, which is this yellowish area in Czechoslovakia where ethnic and native German-speaking people live. So we're talking people who lived in Germany previous to World War I, but because of the Treaty of Versailles, we're now in Czechoslovakia. So Hitler's saying, I just want people who speak German, right? I mean, how hard is that to understand? And Chamberlain says, okay, I mean, let's let him have it. Maybe he'll stop. And Hitler says he will stop. So, yay, peace, right? It's exciting. And coming out of Munich, that's an awkward picture. Coming out of Munich, Chamberlain believes that he has found the peaceful solution, that he has found peace in his time. And he waves a little piece of paper around in London and says, we've done it. We have talked to Mr. Hitler, and we got the peace. It's right here. See, hold it. This says that you get protected, right? I mean, this is great that we're protected from Hitler because we made a deal, right? That's the way we want to do it. Hitler, of course, said he would not take anything else, and that included the rest of Czechoslovakia. This event happening in, I believe, well, this is easy to say, it's the fall of 1938, but by the next spring, Hitler has taken the rest of Czechoslovakia. And this is a key moment. Woo! Key moment, because this is the first time that Hitler has invaded a non-German speaking area. Of course, the Spanish Civil War is a little different. He didn't take control of Spain, but he takes control of Czechoslovakia by invading in early 1939, proving that he is not just settling for ethnic German lands. He is wanting a lot. But a problem exists here for the Germans. The more they get aggressive, the more they might encourage other countries to jump in and try to stop them. And it creates a potential two-front war situation, right? The old bugaboo from World War I. So Hitler decides, well, I've got to figure out how one of these sides can be neutralized. And it's probably not the French, because they hate me always. But what about old Stalin over there? What about Joseph Stalin? Perhaps I can make a deal with him. And they do. 10-year deal. Non-aggression pact, meaning they agree not to attack each other for 10 years. And in those 10 years, the hope is that I can create an empire and let the Soviets do whatever they want. And in 10 years, we'll see what's going on. Maybe we fight a war then. But they agreed to not attack each other for 10 years. Another part of the deal is that they will allow each other to split Poland. Okay, Poland will be split between the two. Now, why do they make this deal? Because they hate each other. Personally, Hitler and Stalin not friends. Hitler wants to avoid a two-front war, and then Stalin does not want to fight the Germans if he can help it. So it's a win-win, right? The Soviets get Poland and the assurances that an aggressive Nazi Germany will not attack them. Hitler wins because now he doesn't have to worry about a strong enemy on his eastern side. He can focus it all on the west. And we're going to take a little break here, at least I am, and I'll push pause and come back later as we kind of break this up. And it's bedtime for Maisie, too. We have to take care of her. But when we get back, it's going to, oh, that looks fun. When we get back, it's going to be Nazi domination of Europe, as the early parts of World War II look very much red and black. Les Mis. All right, I'm back. You're still here, so let's roll. Nazi domination of Europe, 1939-1943. The first parts of this war were incredibly not balanced and very much in the strength direction of the Germans. So the invasion of Poland starts the war. Germany invades Poland on September 1st, 1939 after making the pact with the Russians, and Great Britain and France say, screw it, it's time to roll. and they declare war on Germany. Again, something they never wanted to do, but yet have to find themselves doing it. Now, the reason why the Germans are so successful in these early battles is their strategy called Blitzkrieg, which means lightning war. And they use their Luftwaffe, the Air Force, to hit targets, soften up defenses, and then the tanks roll in and kick some tail. And that's basically the formula for success. Plus, the Germans really aren't facing a valiant foe here early as they come in and just, destroy everyone who is, not up to their military strength. Again, by this point, they have 6 years of preparation, military-wise, industrial-wise, to destroy everyone, basically using the Luftwaffe and Blitzkrieg. So, what does Nazi domination look like? Well, it looks like this in Paris. So what we have here is by the middle of 1940, the Nazis have taken small countries all around them. They conquered France in 1940 after a quick battle, which included nearly trapping the Allied forces at Dunkirk. But the Allied forces get away thanks to some heroism of some British civilians and their pleasure cruises. Piper is here now in the room with me. Piper, can I pick you up? Oh, here's the puppy dog. I've picked her up to tell her about Nazi Germany because Piper herself is a little Nazi. So, say bye. Bye-bye. Yeah, she hated that. She's going to pee on my shoes later. Anyway, Hitler... Oh, it smells like dog crap. Okay, anyway, Hitler takes over Paris, but if you look at a map of France, Paris is in the northern part of the country. And Hitler is basically saying, I want to spend all my resources conquering the whole thing. So he sets up a puppet government in southern France, and that becomes known as Vichy France. And let's look at the map here. The blue or purple is Vichy. So the Nazis don't control that at all, but you have people, French, leading that area of the country who are collaborating with the Nazis. They're basically saying, okay, we'll do what you want, just don't, kill us. And Hitler kind of lets that zone be. Everything else in the red is occupied by the Germans. Now, there is a segment of the French that get away. Their government gets away to London. It's called the Free French, and it's led by Charles de Gaulle. And de Gaulle leads that segment of the government, trying to inspire some sort of response and resistance in the conquered area. But here, basically what we have is France conquered. And now you only have one country standing in the way of Nazi Germany in Western Europe, and that is Great Britain. And that leads us to Winston Churchill. Churchill has become the Prime Minister of Britain after Neville Chamberlain resigns. Churchill, unlike Chamberlain, took a hard line with Hitler. He saw him for the threat that he was, and he refuses a peace offering from Hitler, which triggers the Battle of Britain, where Germany is going to attack England through the air, bombing runs that go every night for 6 to 9 months. Citizens in the major British cities have to go underground into the subways to be safe from these bombing runs. Called this event is also called the Blitz. If you've watched Chronicles of Narnia, it's the first scene in the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe movie. But anyway, in the Blitz, it's just continual bombing of industrial, military, civilian targets. But Britain has some advantages in this. They've developed what's called radar as a scientific and technological invention. They have the Royal Air Force, which is their own Air Force, which is incredibly successful at fighting off the Luftwaffe. But Churchill's demeanor of never give up, of constant encouragement, of promoting the idea of British greatness in a time that looked pretty bad, helps encourage the British people to withstand and to survive the constant attacks. And Hitler has to call off the invasion, and the significance of this is huge because Hitler basically, for the first time, has not defeated someone. All right, this is the first time that he has faced adversity. And it gives hope to everyone else that this Nazi war machine is not unbeatable, that with a little perseverance and a little bit of a geographic advantage that England had, perhaps you can withstand the mighty strength of the Nazi war apparatus. But it would leave you with damage like this. So this is a bombing in London, and it shows the damage that is going to have to be recovered. So even though England is going to technically win the Battle of Britain by not losing or not surrendering, they're certainly not going to be at full strength for the remainder of the war. But Hitler at this point makes a stupid decision. If he had continued to pulverize the British, perhaps eventually he could have saw a victory and seen the defeat of the British and become the master of Europe. But he does not. He pulls out of that attack, and now with his nervous energy, with maybe the inability to deal with adversity, he makes a decision that will end up being stupid, and that is the invasion of the Soviet Union. Again, they had the deal, right? The 10-year deal. Hitler takes about 2 years and says, well, forget that. Let's go get it. So the Germans invade the Soviet Union looking for living space, looking for Lebensraum. Stalin orders the scorched earth policy, and you basically have a drag-out, no-holds-barred battle between these two countries with two leaders who are not afraid to sacrifice everything and abandon all ethics to try and gain a victory. Germans lay siege to Leningrad and Moscow but cannot achieve victories, and it begins to bog the German army down and leads to questions of the inevitability of their dominance. Even though they lay siege to the two largest cities in the Soviet Union, they cannot knock them out. And conditions are terrible in these cities, but the Russian people, much like the British, are not giving up either, and it helps them withstand the Nazi war machine. And that machine is going to continue to try and pound the Soviets, but with the weather on their side and with a superior population and numbers on their side, the Soviet Union are going to be a very good adversary for Hitler and Stalin as his equal. We are going to actually stop there. This is going to be part 1 of World War II, and I'm going to split it up into 2 different videos. First time I've done that, but hey, YOLO. So check out part 2, which will investigate the 2 battles that turned the tide of the war, Stalingrad and D-Day. We'll talk about the end of the war, and also we'll discuss the Holocaust and how that fits in to all of this. So check out part 2 of 13.5, and then we'll go from there. Bye-bye.